Love behind the walls of Buckingham Palace. In 1977, Buckingham Palace became the witness to a meeting that would change the course of British royal history. Prince Charles, who was 29 years old, first met Diana Spencer, a young, beautiful, and hopeful woman. Diana, though far from the royal world, immediately captured Charles's attention with her innocence and cheerfulness. Diana, with her sweet smile and innocence, quickly drew the prince's eye. She was only 19 years old, far removed from the world of royalty full of rules and expectations. In her, Charles saw someone he could share his life with, someone who could lift him out of the burdened life of royalty. However, in Charles's heart, there was another woman who never truly left: Camilla Parker Bowles. From the moment Charles met Camilla, he felt a deep connection. Though his family and society deemed their relationship inappropriate due to Camilla's lower social status, they couldn't deny their feelings for each other. Camilla was Charles's true love, but fate tore them apart. Camilla married Andrew Parker Bowles, while Charles, pressured to marry someone suitable according to public expectations, proposed to Diana. Even though his heart remained tied to Camilla, Charles felt he had no other choice. Charles and Diana's wedding in 1981 became an event of extraordinary grandeur. Buckingham Palace was filled with lights, Diana's sparkling wedding gown, and smiles that appeared perfect on television. The whole world believed they were the ideal couple, ready to lead England into a bright future. But behind all the luxury, tension began to surface. Their age difference, their different backgrounds, and unrealistic expectations began to erode their marriage. Diana, newly thrust into the royal life, began to feel that she wasn't being treated properly. Buckingham Palace, which should have been a place of happiness, instead became a painful place for Diana. Charles, though seeming to love her in public, increasingly showed indifference to her feelings. Their love began to fade, and the emotional emptiness became more evident. Meanwhile, the relationship between Charles and Camilla grew once again, though both had married other people. They began to talk secretly, meeting without anyone knowing. Charles, feeling trapped in an unhappy marriage, longed for Camilla. Every time he was with Camilla, he felt like himself, free from the burden and expectations of royalty. However, he also knew that he was the heir to the throne, and the demands of society forced him to remain in a marriage that was full of lies. Diana, increasingly feeling isolated and alienated, began to sense that something was wrong. Despite being surrounded by attention from the public, she longed for attention and affection from her husband. In her famous 1992 BBC interview, Diana expressed her wounded and disappointed feelings. "There are 3 people in this marriage," she said, referring to the relationship between Charles and Camilla. The world was stunned to hear this, and it became clear that what was happening behind the walls of Buckingham Palace was far more complicated than anyone had realized. Charles and Diana's divorce in 1996 ended a marriage filled with tension. However, even though their separation was officially announced, Charles and Camilla no longer hid their relationship. They began to appear in public together, despite the criticism they received. Charles and Camilla eventually took their relationship further. In 2005, they married in a simpler ceremony at Windsor Castle, which, though not as grand, was full of meaning. Camilla, once considered an obstacle in Charles's life, now stood beside him as his rightful partner. Meanwhile, Diana, who tragically died in a car accident in Paris in 1997, left behind a profound legacy. Diana was known for her kindness, her dedication to charity, and the sacrifices she made for the royal family. Though she was no longer alive, the memories of Diana lived on. Buckingham Palace became the silent witness to her journey, from the difficult times to finally finding peace in true love. Diana remained an icon to many, a symbol of hope and sincerity, even though she was no longer in this world. When Charles and Camilla eventually married, many still remembered Diana with love and sorrow. However, despite the criticism of their marriage, Charles and Camilla moved forward. They knew that even though their journey was filled with controversy, their love could not be denied. Charles, now the king, stood by Camilla as his rightful partner, even though their journey had passed through many trials. Buckingham Palace, which had been the witness to many historical events, still stood strong as a symbol of royal life filled with twists and turns. Behind its majestic walls were untold love stories, unforgiven betrayals, and forgiveness that came after long journeys. Charles and Camilla, who had once gone through dark times, now stood together as king and queen, continuing their duties for the kingdom. However, in their hearts, Buckingham Palace still held memories of Diana, the woman who was once part of their lives, and who, though hurt, still had a profound impact on their journey. Diana, though no longer in this world, remained a part of the monarchy, and her influence would always be felt. The love that once existed, though full of sacrifice and pain, remained a part of a history that would never be forgotten. As time went on, Charles and Camilla's life in Buckingham Palace became more accepted by many. They began to receive recognition for their roles in the British monarchy. Yet, it was undeniable that their life together was never easy. Buckingham Palace, full of history and memories, became the place where they continued to perform their royal duties, but also a place to reflect on and remember the past that was filled with sacrifice. Diana, though gone, still lived on in the memories of those who loved her. Even years after her death, many felt that Diana's role in the royal family could never be replaced. She was a symbol of struggle, sincerity, and selflessness, qualities that were truly embodied by her. Buckingham Palace, which had been the witness to their meetings, marriage, and separation, also remained the witness to the legacy Diana left behind. The love that was once torn apart, yet still lived in every corner of that palace. Charles and Camilla, though they could not erase Diana's shadow, continued their lives with dedication. They continued to work to ensure the monarchy's survival, living a quieter life though still overshadowed by their history. They knew that although they had gone through dark times, there were valuable lessons that they carried forward. However, they also understood that their love story would never escape Diana's legacy. The walls of Buckingham Palace still held the story of their love, of a love that was not fully realized, of struggles to find happiness, and of accepting realities that could not always be changed. Charles, now the king, and Camilla, the queen who stood faithfully by his side, continued their work with dedication. They knew they were part of history, but they also understood that this history was shaped by emotions, by pain, and by the long journey that was filled with difficult decisions. Buckingham Palace, with all its glory and elegance, remained the place that kept many secrets. And although Charles and Camilla moved forward, they knew that Diana's memory would always be a part of their journey. The memory that would never fade, no matter how much time passed.